Hi everyone, I'm Robert Croll and I'm going to read you Juan Hormiga by Gustavo Roldán, which I translated from Spanish to English. If there was one way in which Juan Hormiga was second to none, it was his way of taking a nap. Well, I should say naps, for he took 6 or 7 every day. And that's just if it was a normal day. But if it was raining, or even if the sky was simply cloudy, then the thing really turned serious, and he could take as many as 10 naps in a single afternoon. In this way, he'd earned a certain fame for laziness around the anthill, yet the other ants didn't mind too much, for Juan Hormiga had one other ability. He knew by heart each and every one of his grandfather's adventures from the days of his youth. Juan Hormiga's grandfather had been the bravest creature to ever set foot in any anthill, the most intrepid, the one who'd made the longest journeys and traversed lands beset with the greatest dangers any ant could face. Juan Hormiga knew all of those stories, and he knew how to tell them, and, best of all, he could do it just as if he'd lived through them himself. Whenever he crossed paths with another ant, Juan Hormiga would say something like this: "Hello there, ant. Did I ever tell you about the day when my grandfather escaped from the eagle's talons? He leapt from the very top of a poplar tree, holding tight onto a leaf." At that moment, all of the others would turn their heads, put down whatever they were doing, and come closer, one by one, drawn to Juan Hormiga's colorful narration and the extraordinary escapades of his grandfather. For a while, the whole anthill would forget about work and give in to his hypnotizing words. And so the days went by in the anthill. One morning, Juan Hormiga surprised all of the others, not just because he'd woken up early, but because he was holding a stick between his feet with a little cloth bundle full of food. "I'm going away on a journey," said Juan Hormiga, raising his voice high so that everyone would listen. And, to make sure that no one held any doubts as to his intentions, he added, "I'm going to follow paths my grandfather once traveled. I've told his stories too many times now, so I've made up my mind to go out and see the world, and when I return, I'll have heaps of new stories to tell." And on that note, calling out, "See you soon, my friends," Juan Hormiga sprang out of the anthill and set forth upon his march. The hours went by. An almost nocturnal silence hung over the anthill. One ant asked, "Where will Juan Hormiga be now?" And another one responded, "By this time, he must be coming to the river." And another added, "He'll surely try to ride across it on a branch, just like his grandfather did." And one more pointed out, "You'd have to be terribly brave to do that. The river is far too strong for an ant." Then another ant ventured, "Maybe he's going down into the ravine, hanging from a spider's thread. His grandfather did that too." And another observed, "You'd have to be very strong to do that. If you weren't tremendously strong, you wouldn't even last a minute hanging from a spider's thread." And how brave Juan Hormiga turned out to be. So brave and so determined. Distracted by their talk, the ants didn't notice that everything was being covered by heavy clouds, laden with water. Then a clap of thunder burst in the sky and gave way to rain that flooded everything as fast as I'm telling it now. The ants scrambled up to the highest point of the anthill in search of refuge. If the water moving past our anthill is so strong, it must be much worse in the river. Much, much stronger. The river turns into an angry beast when it rains. And that's where Juan Hormiga was beginning his journey. Yes, and he also said he was thinking of plunging into the river from the top of the giant willow tree that stands on the bank, just like his grandfather once did. If he was thrown into the river, the current must have swept him away, and he'll be drowned. Poor Juan Hormiga. Poor Juan Hormiga, as brave as he was, to meet an end like that. A hero through and through. Juan Hormiga was braver than anyone in this anthill since his grandfather. In the meantime, the rain had stopped, and the water had drained from the ground, leaving a sticky sludge at the foot of the anthill. The ants took a moment of silence in homage to the valiant Juan Hormiga. "Let's plant a flower in his honor at the foot of the great willow tree," one ant proposed. Without wasting even half a second, off they went, marching in search of the giant willow tree that grew on the bank of the river, bringing with them the prettiest flower in all the land, and bearing a sadness as great as the tree they were heading toward. "Where are you going with that flower?" asked a passing mosquito, flying alongside the expedition of ants. "And why those long faces?" "We're going to pay homage to our friend Juan Hormiga. We'll plant this flower in his memory." "Why? Has Juan Hormiga lost his memory, perhaps?" "No, mosquito, in memory of him. Juan Hormiga has been swept away by the water." "Juan Hormiga? But I saw him just a moment ago. He's sleeping in a knothole in the giant willow tree." The ants broke out into an uproar. "He survived! Did you hear that, boys? Juan Hormiga survived the flash flood. He must be wiped out. He must have passed out from exhaustion after swimming so hard against the current, and dodging the tree trunks being dragged along by the water. The flash flood must have pushed him all the way up to that knot in the willow." The troop of ants picked up their step, and a moment later they were standing beneath the giant willow tree. "Psst! Hey! Juan Hormiga, wake up!" "Do you need help getting down?" "Surely, you have no strength left." "Yes, you must be keeling over." Juan Hormiga cracked open his eyes and murmured, "What's going on?" "Hey, my friend, are you okay?" "Of course I'm okay. What's all this shouting about?" answered Juan Hormiga. "What courage you have, Juan Hormiga, after everything you've been through. And you act like nothing happened. What a courageous ant." There was Juan Hormiga, upright, unscathed, and so unconcerned. So much so that the other ants' antennae quivered in surprise. "Why shouldn't I be okay?" said Juan Hormiga, stretching. "We took you for dead, but here you are. You've survived." "Survived what?" "Look, he still has his bundle of food," one ant pointed out. "And he doesn't have any mud on his feet. He's completely clean." "Of course I'm clean. I've always been the cleanest kind of ant." "But after everything you've been through, you should be all covered with mud, and all covered with bumps. I've only taken a nice nap in this comfortable knot in the trunk of the tree, my friends. As far as I know, no one gets dirty from that. And the flood? You didn't get swept away in the flood?" "What flood?" "So you didn't swim against the current until you were exhausted?" "No flood, no current, none of that. I only took a nap. As soon as I reached the foot of this willow tree and saw that the clouds were growing heavy, I climbed up here to take shelter and drifted off to sleep." The ants looked up at Juan Hormiga from the ground, dumbfounded, and a little disappointed as well. Juan Hormiga tossed down his little cloth bundle and sprang after it, flipping through the air like an athlete, and then, landing on top of this improvised cushion, he said, "Since we're all here, and since it doesn't look like it's going to start raining again, let's sit down and eat all of this food I have in my bundle. Meanwhile, I'll tell you about some of my grandfather's amazing feats one more time." Indeed, the rain did not start up again that afternoon. And there the ants remained, nibbling on delicacies, listening for the 100th time to the dangerous adventures of Juan Hormiga's grandfather on the day he escaped from the eagle's talons, leaping from the very top of a poplar tree, holding tight onto a leaf that served as a parachute. Thanks for listening.
If there was one way in which Juan Hormiga was second to none, it was his way of taking a nap. He knew by heart each and every one of his grandfather's adventures from the days of his youth.
A mí siempre me gustó muchísimo la gente que cuenta historias, no solo los escritores. Me gusta una persona que está contando una historia en la cola de la panadería, en el bar, en la mesa al lado, que me gusta parar la oreja. O sea, hay gente que tiene una habilidad para contar y cuando saben hacerlo, me parece que hay algo que transmite un mundo entero. Y bueno, Juan Hormiga es un homenaje a toda esa gente. Juan Hormiga, por supuesto, es una hormiga. Como buena hormiga, es un animal muy pequeñito. Y una cosa que me importaba mucho a la hora de usarlo como personaje, Juan Hormiga tiene que ser muy pequeñito. ¿Y cómo mostrarlo? Lo primero que se me cruzó por la cabeza fue, tiene que ser un personaje muy pequeñito, como puede ser cualquier insecto, cualquier hormiga, que es casi una manchita en un gran espacio. Puede parecer una tontería, pero esta misma historia no se hubiera contado igual si yo hubiera usado un libro, un formato pequeñito, normal, donde esta misma proporción iba a ser como distinto. Podemos decir, si esto fuera una doble página, cambia bastante. Mi idea es que es una hormiga pequeña que se está moviendo en un mundo gigantesco.
He leapt from the very top of a poplar tree, holding tight onto a leaf. All of the others would turn their head and put down whatever they were doing and come closer, one by one, drawn to Juan Hormiga's colorful narration and the extraordinary escapades of his grandfather. For a while, the whole anthill would forget about work and give in to his hypnotizing words.